This film is about two brothers, Emil and Jakob, who reunite after years of being apart. They not only share their sadness over the loss of their parents, but also secrets. The film starts with a couple, Emily and Andreas, arriving at a vacation home that appears gloomy and dusty. Emily immediately starts cleaning, while Andreas seems busy with his laptop. After a while, Jakob, the younger brother, arrives with a guitar and skateboard and is warmly greeted by Emily as they share a tight hug. Andreas greets Jakob friendly. As night falls, Emily is awakened by a loud noise coming from Jakob's room. She finds Jakob listening to music through headphones and still awake. The next day, Andreas is busy making phone calls, arranging the installation of a fence for the house they are going to sell. While they embrace each other, Andreas assures Emily that they will succeed in selling the house. As Emily packs belongings into boxes, Andreas asks Jakob to start packing things in the kitchen. However, Jakob doesn't respond and instead stares intensely at Emily. While Jakob glides down the road towards the store on his skateboard, a magazine catches his attention, and he decides to buy it. Upon returning home, Emily and Andreas share a loving kiss and embrace before Andreas departs for work. On his way, Andreas spots Jakob walking alone. He quickly calls out to Jakob, reminding him that he will be leaving and asking him to provide support to their sister, Emily. Andreas emphasizes that Jakob owes a lot to Emily and their parents. When Jakob returns home after skateboarding, he finds Emily busy with her tasks. Curious, Emily asks if Jakob has been practicing skateboarding professionally. Jakob proudly replies affirmatively and playfully teases Emily for doubting his ability to sign the contract for selling their family house. Emily is shocked and puzzled. She explains that she is burdened with debt and feels estranged from her brother. Emily also mentions that they have discussed the sale of the family house and Jakob would receive a share of the proceeds. However, Jakob does not provide a clear answer, further confusing Emily. Finally, Jakob firmly responds, "I don't want the money." Jakob was lying in his room, engrossed in reading an article in his new magazine. Suddenly, he heard Emily's voice talking on the phone, catching his attention. Curious, he cautiously stepped out of his room. However, as he approached Emily, he noticed her face glued to the phone and quickly left when she saw him. It was a rainy afternoon when Emily was engrossed in working on an important document. Jakob approached her and handed her a magazine, pointing to an article about the recently released movie Black Panther. As Emily read the article, she stumbled upon a surprising fact about a jaguar roaming in residential areas and killing some livestock. Suddenly, a growling sound echoed, causing Emily to burst into laughter, realizing that the sound came from Jakob pretending to be a jaguar. Jakob innocently denied it while wearing his hood. As Emily walked towards the stairs, Jakob leaped from behind, startling her. Emily laughed and hurriedly ascended the stairs, while Jakob followed her with slow footsteps on the wooden floor. The door to Emily's room was slightly ajar, and she could be seen removing her top and then her underwear. Jakob, who was outside, was captivated by the beauty of his sister. He grabbed the old motorcycle lying next to him and started fixing it. Emily watched from the side, commenting that the motorcycle would never come back to life. However, Jakob was determined otherwise. He promised Emily that they would take a trip together once he successfully repaired it. Finally, the motorcycle roared to life, and both of them embarked on their journey. They rode across a vast lake where cows grazed in its vicinity. Emily and Jakob lay side by side on the lake's edge to rest. It was then that Jakob pointed towards the distant mountains, mentioning that it was where their parents had passed away. They fell silent for a moment, paying homage to the memories of their long-departed parents. After their journey, Emily and Jakob returned home. They spotted a man with a hat walking alone on the street and descending a hill. The following day, Emily decided to pack up the remaining clothes and try on their mother's dress. She showed the dress to Jakob as she tried on their father's clothes, mimicking their father's way of speaking and seeking his opinion on their father's attire. However, Jakob told her that their father wasn't like that. As Emily changed back into her own clothes, Jakob startled her by saying that their father knew about their special relationship. Emily was shocked and froze as she buttoned up her top, while Jacob lowered his head. Two souls bound by blood shared forbidden intimacy. Their hands explored each other, concealed by a blanket as a barrier of decency. Their eyes met, exchanging passionate glances. With gentle movements, Jacob pinned Emily down, caressing her face with soothing touches. His lips hovered close to Emily's, tempting her with promises of an exhilarating kiss. However, Jacob restrained himself, his strong hand encircling Emily's neck as he reached for his trousers. Jacob showered Emily's face and neck with intoxicating kisses, each touch akin to a seductive butterfly's caress. But suddenly, that moment vanished. Emily rose from her position, leaving Jacob asleep in the chair beside her. In a vast expanse of grassy fields, Emily and Jacob walked along the path of their childhood memories with their beloved parents. Their journey led them to a dense forest, where they lay side by side under the shade of towering trees, peacefully drifting into a deep slumber. However, their tranquility was disrupted by the sound of footsteps shattering the silence. The siblings woke up and witnessed a group of pedestrians walking their dogs, following the faint trail of a black panther. They stealthily followed the pedestrians, but soon found a suitable hiding spot amidst a pile of wood. They fell asleep once again, sheltered and comfortable within their temporary refuge. The next day they continued their journey, greeted by breathtaking vistas that sparked conversations about their hopes and dreams. Their adventure grew more captivating, strengthening their bond as siblings and creating unforgettable memories along the way. At the peak of a rocky hill, Emily and Jacob played a game of chase, their laughter echoing through the air. After a tiring climb, they returned home and shed their clothes, sitting face to face. Unmistakable desire hung in the air as they touched each other. Emily pinned Jacob down, her movements akin to riding a powerful motorcycle. Their passion ignited, and they immersed themselves in an intoxicating intimacy. After that, they went to a bar for some drinks. Emily asked Jacob if he had ever met someone special in a place like this. Jacob admitted that he had met a few people, but never formed any meaningful relationships. Emily felt a tinge of sadness that they had never crossed paths before. However, Jacob remarked how strange that was. As Emily burst into laughter, she caught Jacob gazing at her with undeniable intensity. She tried to conceal her smile behind a sip of her drink, but subtle gestures towards her table invited Jacob to join. They decided to play a role, imagining themselves as strangers who had just met at the bar and instantly fallen in love. Jacob asked if he could kiss Emily, and with her consent, they began to indulge in affectionate gestures. They spent their day together in this romantic scenario, living their lives as if they were just two strangers who had fallen in love without any burdens or fears. As Emily and Jacob sat side by side on the grassy field, Emily's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw Andreas's name, deciding to ignore the call. Instead, she lay down and murmured that she would call him back later. Jacob seized the opportunity to inquire about their business situation. Emily explained that they were indeed struggling with some debts, but they were confident they could overcome them. Jacob asked if Emily regretted her decision to take over the company. Emily shook her head, stating that she had no regrets at all. She believed that if it weren't for Andreas, their company would have faced financial ruin. As they walked back home, they spotted a stranger standing in front of the door, observing his surroundings. The man inquired about their identities and explained that he was there to inspect the property. Emily, feeling uneasy, informed him that she was busy and wished to spend time with Jacob. She suggested that the man contact her husband to arrange a more suitable visitation time. Emily reached for her phone to call Andreas, but hesitated before pressing the dial button. She decided to reconsider her situation before contacting him. Instead of making the call, Emily crawled over to the bed where Jacob was resting. She playfully started tickling and biting his foot. They joked around for a while, but Jacob grew frustrated and expressed a desire to sleep. Emily continued to tease him, pulling down his pants and attempting to initiate a more intimate activity. However, Jacob is not interested and just wants to be left alone. He firmly rejects Emily's invitation. Emily continues to bother him, but eventually Jacob manages to overpower her and shouts at her to stop. Emily's loud voice makes Jakob give up, and he stops. When Emily woke up and found Jakob already awake, he surprised her with a question. He wanted Emily to move to America with him. Emily laughed at the request, showing that they both could decide to move and live together there. However, Emily firmly rejected the idea. She told Jakob to stop acting childish and admitted that she herself was unsure of what she wanted in life. A few days later, Andreas arrived to pack up their belongings. Jacob, who hadn't returned since that day, came in looking disheveled and immediately went inside to pack his backpack. Even though Emily approached to talk, Jacob seemed indifferent and walked out. At the same time, Andreas brought the house documents and asked Jacob and Emily to sign them. However, Emily suddenly had a change of heart. She stated that she didn't want to sign the documents and wanted to stay with Jakob there. In contrast to Emily, Jakob looked at her sharply and immediately signed the documents. As Jakob turned to leave, Emily hugged him tightly and pleaded with him to stay. Andreas watched their interaction from a distance, but couldn't bear to see any further. Emily was crying and kneeling while Jakob walked away, leaving his skateboard and devastated sister behind. As they were traveling, suddenly, Andreas stepped out of his car. With a heavy heart, Emily took the offered contract and signed it. After that, Emily walked away from the car to return, and Andreas continued his journey alone. Meanwhile, Jakob climbed the mountain where their parents were gone, and the movie ended.